In August 1947, the British left India after more than 300 years. British India was partitioned into two independent nation-states, India and Pakistan. India was to remain secular with a Hindu majority. Pakistan was to have a Muslim majority. This is the story of how two countries were carved up in haste by British colonists and how this led to one of the largest human migrations in history. An estimated 15 million people were uprooted as Muslims began trekking to East and West Pakistan, while Hindus and Sikhs went the other way. Between 1 and 2 million people lost their lives due to large-scale religious violence, starvation, and disease. More than 75,000 women were raped or abducted. But how did this religious hatred spark so much violence? To understand this, we have to look at Britain's rule of India. Tensions between Hindus and Muslims did exist before the British Raj was established, but many Muslims, Hindus and Sikhs also coexisted peacefully. When the British came to rule, they used a now infamous strategy of divide and rule. They enforced specific measures like the scientific census in 1871 and the formation of a separate electorate for Muslims, which led to the evolution of rigid religious identities. These identities became more important than language or ethnicity and were used to pit people against one another so that the British could consolidate their own power. Mistrust between Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, and Christians began to grow. How did this lead to the country being partitioned? Indians had long wanted independence from oppressive British rule. During World War I, Britain introduced the Defence Act of India, which gave them indiscriminate power to lock people up without trial and restrict freedom of speech and movement. In 1919, British soldiers massacred unarmed Sikh men, women, and children who had gathered to celebrate the Sikh New Year in Jallianwala Bagh. Some say the massacre marked the beginning of resistance against colonial governance. But to understand how and why the country was partitioned, we also need to understand the political players at the time. This is Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi. They were leaders of the Congress, a Hindu-dominated secular political party which spearheaded the independence movement. They wanted a united, secular India. This is Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He was the leader of the Muslim League. He also wanted independence and initially backed Hindu-Muslim unity. But by the 40s this changed and he wanted an independent state for Muslims. In 1939, Britain dragged India into World War II. Most Indians were not happy about it. Nehru and Gandhi refused to fight. They initiated the 1942 Quit India movement, a movement to have the British leave India entirely that resulted in nationwide protests against British rule. In 1943, famine hit Bengal. Up to 3 million people lost their lives, and many Indians believe that the famine was caused by colonial exploitation. At the end of World War II, Britain was cash-strapped. They realized they couldn't afford to run India much longer. They decided they would withdraw from the subcontinent, but didn't put a date on it. With talk of a transfer of power, tensions ran high